One of history's greatest misconceptions is that it has led us to believe the world we live in today was always supposed to be this way. The Industrial Revolution happened in Britain. English became the global language. Europe shaped modern civilization. All of this seems to make perfect sense. But history has never had a supposed to. Most of the time, it simply stands at a crossroad and turns left or turns right. What if 800 years ago it had turned the other way? Around the year 1100, the most prosperous city in the world was not in Europe, it was in China, in Kaifeng, a city with a population of over 1 million. At the same time, London had perhaps 20,000 people. The night markets of Kaifeng never closed. Boats moved constantly along the Bian River. The world's earliest paper currency circulated here. This dynasty was the first to use the compass for ocean navigation. Ships from the port of Quanzhou had already reached Arabia and East Africa. The Song dynasty's iron production had reached the scale rare in the world at that time, approaching some estimates of Britain's output in the early years of the Industrial Revolution, centuries later. Some historians argue that the Song dynasty had already developed many of the conditions that later proved necessary for an industrial revolution, making it one of the pre-modern civilizations closest to an industrial breakthrough. If you asked both a European and a Song Chinese person in 1100 to predict the future, almost all of them would have said, the future belongs to China, so why didn't it? Many people assume that the biggest beneficiary of an industrial revolution would be the rulers, a stronger army, more wealth, more secure power. But that's exactly wrong. If an industrial breakthrough had truly happened in the Song dynasty, the first thing to change would not have been the battlefield or the ocean. It would have been the social order inside Song China itself. Imagine the outskirts of Kaifeng in 1150. Iron workshops began using water-powered machinery instead of human labor. Productivity multiplies. More and more farmers leave the land and pour into the cities to work. With fewer people on the land, landlords' incomes begin to fall. The court's agricultural tax base starts to erode. The emperor, of course, would not sit still. He would find a way. Tax the workshops, build new sources of revenue. But what does that mean? It means the state begins to depend on merchants and craftsmen, not just landlords and farmers. And whoever you depend on, you have to care about. Those who had always been placed at the bottom of society, the merchants, the craftsmen, would slowly gain bargaining power they had never had before. At the same time, cracks would begin to appear in the imperial examination system. The exams selected people who could read the classics and write elegant essays. But an industrial society needs people who can manage accounts, understand mechanics, and run factories. The existing talent system would increasingly struggle to meet the demands of an industrial society. Each crack would be small, but accumulated over the time. Song China's social order would slowly become unrecognizable. Every industrial revolution in history has first been a social revolution, one that left the existing order deeply unsettled. Song China would be no different. The Song China survived that internal upheaval. The course of the 13th century would have changed at its roots. An industrialized Song dynasty would have had the capacity to continuously produce weapons and supplies. The advantage that Mongol cavalry depended on would have been dramatically weakened. The Mongol westward expansion might not have reached as far as it did, but Song China would also not likely have become an expansionary military empire. For Song China, the most profitable thing was not conquering territory. It was continuing to trade, shipping porcelain and silk from Quanzhou in exchange for silver and spices was far simpler than garrisoning overseas territory. So what would more likely have emerged was a different kind of expansion. The expansion of goods, not armies. A form of globalization different from European colonialism might have emerged centuries earlier. This raises the biggest question of all. If the Industrial Revolution had happened in Song China rather than Britain, would the modern world we know today still look the same? Nation-states, colonial empires, capitalism, parliamentary democracy. These things did not grow naturally out of industrialization. They were the product of Europe's specific conditions, a combination of industrialization, naval supremacy, and Enlightenment thought, stitched together over centuries. Plant that seed in different soil, and something different grows. We have no reason to think an industrialized Song China would have replicated Britain's history. The war we take for granted today is just one of many possibilities that history could have produced. Of course, none of this happened. In 1279, the Mongols destroyed the southern Song. A society that had still been evolving was pushed onto a different historical path. It is precisely because it didn't happen that we can more clearly see what was truly missing. It was not technology. The iron workshops of Kaifeng were real. The paper currency was real. The port of Quanzhou was real. The real reason is this. An industrial revolution is never just an invention. It is the moment an entire society becomes willing to let technology break open the old order. Song China had technology. It had wealth. It had trade networks. But merchants had money. Without political protection, the wealth could be taken at any moment. Craftsmen had experience, but their knowledge was hard to systematically compile and pass on. The way classical texts were, the center of the entire knowledge system still revolved around the imperial examinations. The brightest people put their lives on the exams because that was the most stable, most worthwhile path. This was not something anyone deliberately designed. It was the natural result of a mature system doing what it was built to do. Any system rewards those who play by its rules most effectively. Over time, the whole society becomes better and better at repeating its successes and less willing to break them, because any mature system rewards those who maintain the existing order, not those who disrupt it. Song China was too successful enough that it found it very hard to break itself apart. Every era may possess an invention capable of changing the world, but not every era is willing to bear the cost of changing itself. History truly changes direction, not on the day a new technology appears, but on the day an old order first becomes willing to make way for it.